Welcome to the Half Point Per podcast. Not giving this one an episode title. This is not going in the podcast feed. We can call this our Super Bowl live stream this week. I am Evan Riggs, joined as always by my co-host Dalton Willie. And Dalton, I think the first year of the show, it was Bengals-Rams Super Bowl, but it's been quite nice to have Chiefs in the Super Bowl every year since then that we've done this.
Yeah, I don't even know how to handle this anymore. The Athletic was joking that they are going to start calling the Super Bowl show the Nate Taylor show because he's on for every Super Bowl they've had, essentially.
Well, and I think the first year we did this, we had props, but we also talked a lot about just what we thought was going to happen in the game, broke down some things like that. I think anybody who is probably going to listen to this, they know we're Chiefs fans. I mean, I'm wearing a Chiefs shirt. We're both going to pick the Chiefs to win in the Super Bowl no matter what, because how could we not? So we're not going to really talk too much about that sort of thing, what we think is going to happen. So a more fun way to do it is just to run through a million props because, good Lord, are there a million of them to choose from. A lot of novelty props. We'll talk about some of those. And then I have some mixed in the group ones for you and I, and then some that I just brought myself to talk about. Some more, we'll call them real props that people might want to bet on or just think about in this game. And we'll actually start here. That this one is one that I will probably bet on because you can get such good odds. Super Bowl MVP outside of Patrick Mahomes. I think, the first place to start, especially if you're not sold on the Chiefs winning or you're not even betting the result, is you look at Saquon Barkley, you look at Jalen Hurts. I think for the sake of our discussion, unless you took this a different way, are there any other Chiefs that you can kind of tell yourself a story of how they could win the Super Bowl MVP and it not be Mahomes?
Yeah, I actually, the answer I went with here was Travis Kelce, and a couple of reasons for that. Sounds like he's not retiring based on his interviews, but this almost seems like a farewell tour, at least as far as his ascension to greatness. Mm-hmm. He could break all of Jerry Rice's remaining records in the playoffs in the Super Bowl and would likely have to win MVP. And it is a voter fatigue at this point for Super Bowl MVP, where giving Mahomes it a third time seems unfair. And I think if he has a big game, it's easy for people to talk themselves into that. And he would likely be pretty critical in a lot of different ways this Chiefs team can win. So Travis Kelce at plus 1,400 seemed like the best Chiefs one. I thought about Chris Jones. The way he impacts the game, it's not like Aaron Donald when he won MVP, so it's hard to justify that one for me because his plays don't show up as much on the stat sheet.
There is a chance, though, because Jalen Hurts likes to hang on to the ball and take sacks and can be prone to getting stripped. That hasn't happened in the playoffs, but that was a regular season issue for him this year. So there is a chance for Chris Jones. Kelce was one I thought about, and then kind of Xavier Worthy in the same vein of maybe just one pass catcher really goes off. And, I've heard, I won't lie to you, I haven't listened to a ton of Super Bowl content this week because this has been like the craziest week in the NBA history. But I have heard, pour one out for our guy Johnny there. I have heard people talk about, if Mahomes won Super Bowl MVP against the Eagles last time, like he was under 200 yards, blah, blah, blah. He's going to win it every time. And I think people need to quit talking about or thinking about that Mahomes game just by pure yards because the Chiefs hardly had the ball in that game. I think he threw either 0 or 1 incompletions in the second. It was one incompletion in the second half, and I'll talk about this later. It was a throw it out of the back of the end zone, the play is dead play. And his, if you look at EPA and all of that stuff, it was one of the best games of his career. So just because he didn't have the crazy stats, it was an incredible game by Mahomes that game. So I say that to say there is a world where Mahomes does not win Super Bowl MVP, where he does not have the greatest game and maybe one of his weapons pops off. However, where I'm looking, how deep did you look at the values on this list? Because I've got a guy who he's a big name, but he's he's below Harrison Butker by a lot.
I stopped when I started seeing offensive linemen, and I'm going to talk myself into that conversation. Please don't tell me it's Joe Tooney.
No. Although talk about storylines. Left guard playing left tackle, Joe Tooney.
Yeah, it's a storyline. I don't think an offensive lineman has ever been top 5 in vote getters for Super Bowl MVP, if that's ever been counted.
But there have been 2 cornerbacks who have won Super Bowl MVP. And you've got Trent McDuffie sitting there at plus 65,000. No, I'm sorry. That's Chris Jones plus 6,500. McDuffie plus 30,000 to win Super Bowl MVP. I mean, look, man.
Need to see.
So it's happened twice in NFL history. Once, I think it was Tampa Bay when they won their Super Bowl in like 2000 or whatever year that was. 2 interceptions in that game. And then another time, it was early the mid 90s. I don't remember the team or the player, but I was looking at this earlier. It was 2 interceptions in that game too. So 2 interceptions by the same guy, and he's going to be in the conversation. Now, I know Trent McDuffie, not a lot of interceptions, although he does have a couple. He has 2 just in the last 6 to 8 weeks. I'm just saying, he's a cornerback that if he shuts down A.J. Brown, if he maybe gets an interception, he's going to be a guy who gets sent on blitzes once or twice in the game. I mean, the biggest play of the game against Buffalo, 4th and 5 for the season, McDuffie's coming on a blitz. Like, what if he has an interception and a strip sack? Like, and it's not the prettiest offensive game, which have been a lot of Chiefs games this year. Again, I'm not saying it's likely. Am I going to put $5 on plus 30,000? Yeah, I think I'm going to.
Well, how could he get that if he wasn't even a Pro Bowl invitee?
That's true.
Yeah, you didn't even think about that. You got it.
Didn't even think about that. I do think first team All-Pro got to count for something here. On to much less serious ones here for a minute. National anthem length. So I've seen 121. I've seen 120. Has kind of gone back and forth. Dalton, are you familiar with the artist who is performing? He seems famous. I just don't know who he is.
Yeah, Joe Baptiste is actually a character in Overwatch.
So from what I gathered in my research, this man could bring any number of instruments or not. So that's what makes this hard to choose. I will say over 121 is plus 100. Under is minus 130. A lot of talk that if he brings a piano, that might be a game changer for this time. He's from New Orleans. Like, do we get a little jazz mixed in that extends this anthem a little bit? Also a possibility. 7 of the last 11 have gone over 120 seconds. Give me the over here.
I took the over too. You're on the national stage. You just want to kill it. You're going to take your time as much as you can. And he's not very well known. So throw that in there. You want to make your spotlight. Maybe Home of the Brave has a lot of A's in it this time, and we hit that over here.
Maybe we take a break for piano solo. Maybe there's somebody else playing a saxophone down there. Like you just don't know.
Maybe they're holding on the play. We got to begin.
Another one during the anthem. Just wanting to get this one out there in case anyone wants to just throw a little bet on a plus 350. Will Taylor Swift be shown during the anthem? Plus 350, yes. Minus 500, no. I'm going no. I don't think it happened last year. I feel like they've made a point of showing her less and less in games as time has gone on. But just funny that that's a prop that exists.
Yeah, I actually went yes here.
You did?
Yeah, this all funnels into my Travis Kelce and VP theory. We really build it up. There are going to be a couple of Super Bowl commercials with Kelce in them. He wins MVP. Big money NFL gets what they want in Taylor Swift fangirling. And, yeah, we get Taylor Swift during the national anthem. Maybe she does a solo during it.
And then the chips from the Pfizer vaccine all activate in everybody.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop
As
you there.
Mr. Pfizer wins MVP.
We're live on YouTube. We're gonna get banned.
Okay, next one. Is the first play a run or a pass? Run is minus 140, pass plus 110. And to be clear, this is first play. It doesn't matter which team gets the ball first. So that obviously throws a little bit of a wrench in things.
Yep, I went run because I think almost undoubtedly the Eagles are running the ball on the first play, and I think the Chiefs are like a 50-50 shot for a runner or an RPO on the first play of the game. So I will.
They ran an RPO first play against the Bills, so you're really going to be left up to the defense's reads, perhaps, if the Chiefs get the ball.
So I felt pretty strongly it's going to be a run. And if the Eagles come out passing, and anybody has data that the Eagles are going to come out passing, I will quadruple the amount of money I'm betting on the Chiefs on the Super Bowl.
You know, I took pass here. I'm going to tell you why. I did a lot more research than I really probably should have with this.
I haven't been in the trenches.
And really, this is just like an odds thing. Like, you know, what I say, minus 110 and plus 140. Let me go. Yeah, minus 140 and plus 110. Excuse me. I feel like this should be more of a 50-50, and those odds just don't quite reflect that. I looked at the last 4 games for each team. It was 2-2, 2 runs, 2 passes for the Chiefs, 2-2, 2 runs, 2 passes for the Eagles. So, I mean, if I'm getting a 50% chance, I'm betting something that, you know, is implied a little bit less. I'm just taking the pass, playing the math game. Let's see what happens.
I don't hate it. And this is as bad as betting on the coin flip, in my opinion. Like,
yeah.
You just don't know. And it sounds like it's a coin flip.
And it literally is. And it's but it's nice to make bets like these because it obviously you're going to lose some, but also if you win like 1 or 2 of these, like there's like Johnny's favorite bet is both quarterbacks to complete their first pass. I guarantee you whatever that line is, he's betting it. If you're on the show, that would have been one of his props. Those are fun because say you put $10 on it, like you're working ahead. All right, like you won your first bet, you're like, all right, live bet the Chiefs. They're down a touchdown. Let's get going. Like,
yeah, there's nothing worse than placing a bet that you actually believe in, and then watching it not come to fruition. With these, It's just like, it's free money. It's like first basket scoring in the NBA. Like you don't actually know who's going to get that.
I mean, it's last game of the year, so like. You kind of got to lay it all out there, players and bettors alike.
This is not a financial podcast.
Yeah, not financial advice.
It's tax season, by the way, guys. So
better be banking on refunds after this.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, anybody who has listened to us, just by virtue of the Chiefs coming back from 2 double-digit deficits the last 2 years in the Super Bowl, you've definitely made money in the Super Bowl if you just believe what we believe and believe in the Chiefs. So.
Yeah. Well, if you've listened to this podcast and you took a couple of our preseason bets, you should be doing pretty well.
Yep. Okay. Number of the first touchdown score. I always like these number bets they throw out in the Super Bowl every year. There's other variations of it too. I think in previous years, I didn't see one this year, but I mean, there's a million bets. Maybe I just didn't see it. Sometimes there's ones where it's like the whole game. What does that number add up to of touchdown scores? This one is just the first touchdown score. And that number is 15.5. And of the over for that, minus 130. The under for that, plus 100. Dalton, what are you taking? I mean, Saquon Barkley is obviously tilting that under to plus 100, in my opinion.
Yeah, I did take under for plus 100. Because it's going to be a Mahomes rushing touchdown or a Hollywood Brown passing touchdown. Those are my 2 bets on this, and I just believe those 2 are going to be the case. Obviously, Kareem Hunt for the Chiefs is not under 15, so he hurts that. Travis Kelce hurts that. But you have Xavier Worthy who could get a touchdown.
Their whole receiving core outside of Justin Watson.
I swear to God, if it's Justin Watson.
I'm taking the under. The over definitely has, like, you have Saquon, you have Kelce, Dallas Goedert, Kareem Hunt. Like, those 3 of those guys are 3 of the most likely guys to score, but there's just more options on the under. You mentioned all the Chiefs receivers. I mean, you've got AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. Also, maybe Pacheco finds his way into the end zone too. And I mean, outside of Saquon, the most likely touchdown scorer in the game is probably Jalen Hurts, who is number one. So that's another guy that you get if you take the under.
Yeah. I feel like it being plus odds is a little strange. I get Saquon, but
yeah, I think that's what I think. If you go look, I really didn't look at any time touchdown score odds, but my guess is Saquon's like minus 230, like something like that. Like and so that's probably tilting it. And then Kelsey, just out of respect for Kelsey, and not that he couldn't score because he absolutely could, and he maybe will. Kelsey also is a guy that always gets pretty good respect on those lines. So that just those two alone probably tilted. Okay. Distance of Mahomes' first touchdown pass. Over 9.5, minus 110. The under is the same. I did also find, this is on FanDuel, DraftKings has the same one at 8.5. Same odds, if that changes your opinion on it. I'm going under, and this is one that I would not bet. This is just like a for fun. Let's talk about it a little bit, because Mahomes has thrown 2 touchdown passes in the playoffs. Which, by the way, the one on DraftKings, I don't know if this is the case on FanDuel. DraftKings, it voids if he doesn't throw for a touchdown. So that's nice. That combined with it being 8.5, if you're going to bet it, that's the one you want to go bet. His average length of his touchdown passes this year is 12.2 yards, which, if it's not the bottom, I think it's very close to the bottom of the NFL. 17 of his passing touchdowns came from inside the 10 during the regular season this year. In the playoffs, he's thrown 2 passing touchdowns. Those are 11-yard touchdowns, both of them. So it just makes it very dicey either way. But what I worry about, think about how much trouble the Eagles had with the motions, with Corn Dog a couple years ago. The Chiefs had 2 touchdowns inside the 5 passing.
To Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney.
Yeah. And the Chiefs in the red zone in the Super Bowl, I mean, they always have stuff you haven't seen as they go in the playoffs, but especially in the Super Bowl. I mean, you think of the first Niners one, it's the Rose Bowl, like parade, right? Whatever the play is called, where they all motion and spin around. Corn Dog, obviously, was a different look
than
the Chiefs had shown all year. You had have Wasp, obviously. And then Mahomes also
running it out of a full house last week against the Bills.
Yeah. And then last year in the Super Bowl, in, I believe, overtime, you had a fake. I mean, the Chiefs have done a lot of the shovels in the red zone to Kelsey. In the Super Bowl last year, though, they did a screen pass to, I believe, Pacheco, and Mahomes throws basically a no-look pass to Kelsey in the middle of the field that he came very close on actually scoring on that. I think the Chiefs scored the next play. So they always have a different look in the red zone, which makes me think there's a very good chance that the Chiefs throw like a 3-yard touchdown at some point in this game.
Yeah. Some new bubble screen concept we haven't seen from Andy Reid to Worthy. But I took the under here too. It's a really good Eagles pass defense. We'll say a nice thing about the Eagles here. And their corners are going to give the Chiefs receivers trouble. They're also one of the better teams that even defending against the screen game, which I'll be interesting to see who bends and breaks on that one. Probably them. But I really don't see this. I don't see a play happening where Worthy breaks it for a long touchdown. Maybe Kelsey gets by Vaughn on a nice inside route that gets him into the end zone. But really, I think that the Chiefs are going to try to attack the interior line opposite of Jalen Carter in the end zone in this game. So that's why I think they're going to be pretty heavy in run formations when they get close to that red zone.
Yeah. Jalen Carter, who, by the way, did you see this? He is sick. He was a limited participant because he's sick. And the blurb said he's expected to play, so I'm sure he will. But just worth noting if he continues to show up limited, because he's obviously a big deal in this game.
Yeah, I love when we find out he's going to have food poisoning and someone's going to be like, did you know the hotel staff at his hotel has a Chiefs fan on it and they probably poisoned him because the Kansas City Chiefs can't win anything without cheating their way to it.
Oh, God. Okay. I hope I didn't, because I've been looking back and forth between my list and then the one that's in the shared doc. I hope I haven't
We
skipped
skipped
over.
Saquon.
Okay, I'll go back to it. Saquon Barkley over under 109.5 rushing yards. Dalton, you brought this one. I'll let you answer first here.
I brought this one because it's really interesting for a ton of reasons. If you heavily believe the Eagles are going to win, you're probably betting the over on this. And I think almost all situations where the Eagles win, it leads back to Saquon having a big game. The Chiefs have not allowed a 100-yard rushing performance from a running back since December of 2023.
Yeah, and also in their last 18 playoff games, they have not allowed a 100-yard rusher.
So, granted, Saquon is definitely the best back, other than maybe Christian McCaffrey last year, that they're going to be facing.
Yeah, and they played Derrick Henry in 2019 in that playoff game stretch.
Yeah. And I mean, last week it looked like the Bills might have been able to get James Cook there had they done it more.
Yeah, I mean, so full disclosure, one of the props that I brought separately was Saquon Barkley and Kareem Hunt to combine for 200 yards rushing. I think it's like plus 320. Let me scroll my list here. Yeah, plus 300. The Chiefs, like we've said, have not given up a 100 rusher all year and quite some time in the playoffs. But they have been run on a bit in the playoffs this year. Like Mixon had a good day, and the Texans have not been a good run team this year. Like you just were getting at, I think if the Bills had just a little more dedication, that James Cook probably would have gotten there in the last game. So I do think Saquon is going to get there because he's just so good. And I mean, you think about it, he could have a bad day, but he breaks off a 60-yard run like almost every game. If he just has one of those and then is balled up outside of that, he's still probably going to get there.
Yeah, and just full disclosure, because the odds are even on this one, I wouldn't bet it if I was anybody listening to this because I don't think it's a good bet.
So do you like Saquon and Hunt to combine for 200 rushing yards at plus 300 more or less than just the Saquon?
More.
Okay.
Because I think there's a good chance Kareem has 20 carries for 80 yards. It's not pretty, but then you just need 14 more from Saquon. And I mean, I think it's going to be the biggest defensive game plan for Kansas City is to figure out how to stop Saquon, which is going to be very difficult. Mm-hmm. But you are going up against, I mean, the best defensive coordinator in the last decade in the playoffs at a minimum.
Yeah.
And somebody who probably has something in his pocket that this offense hasn't seen before when it comes to stopping the run game. And one of the best interior defensive linemen in Chris Jones.
I thought you were going to say Mike Pennell at stopping the run.
Mike Pennell was critical in winning last year's Super Bowl stopping the run.
He
better do it again. That's why he's on the roster. But no, and I did find this really interesting while I was researching this one. But I want to stick on this topic for a bit because I think the run game is probably the biggest part of the Super Bowl, which is weird. So the Saquon Barkley has gained 61% of his yards on runs in the A gap, and the A gap, if anybody doesn't know, is like right between the center and the left guard.
Mm-hmm.
And the run blocking grade for the center in Philadelphia has actually been below league average. So Saquon's been doing a lot of the work there. And if you watch Saquon play, obviously he does. He hurdled a guy backwards. But what I find interesting is that they run primarily out of the A gap, and that's where primarily Chris Jones will be lined up. And I think there's a non-zero chance that Kansas City has an idea about where they're going to want to put that football. And we could see a lot of Leo Chanel lined up pretty close to that A gap.
I was going to say, we're going to see Leo Chanel just run into the offensive line as hard as he can about 25 times on Sunday.
Which is why I was bummed when I looked up this rush prop, because I thought the under would be plus money, even with it being ridiculously high at 110. And it's not. Yeah. Otherwise, I was going to bet it if the under was plus money, because I think that's going to be the Chiefs' primary focus the entire game. And they're probably the best team in football right now at game planning to stop a specific problem on the opposing offense.
What I worry about is Saquon's going to have a play or two where they run like a toss or more of a stretch, kind of like to get him to the outside. And I worry about Nick Bolton in that situation. We saw Najee Johnson get stiff armed straight to hell by James Cook against Buffalo. If it's Watson or Joshua Williams in that place, I feel a little bit better. But there are some areas where I think Saquon has the potential to break off big plays, and I think for me, it's just like Saquon's been so good. I think he's been over 100 yards. Was it 14 of 19 games? Did I see that right? I think that's what I saw.
Probably.
Like he's been absurd. So I think the prop itself is probably a stay away, but just because the 300 plus or 200 plus is a plus 300, and you get the help from Kareem Hunt, and if you get like 120 from Saquon, which is not that much different from this prop, then you've got a real shot at it, I think. And then kind of along those same lines, one of the other props that I brought that I think I'm going to bet, because people who bet it against Washington won in like 10 seconds. Saquon 2 touchdowns is plus 280. So like, I mean, that's going to be a $5 bet for me. Just sprinkle it on, because
I don't like a Chiefs hater.
Even if he does have a bad game, if he doesn't hit that prop, if he's held to 75 yards, which for him is a bad game, they're going to give it to him in the red zone unless they're on the 1 yard line. So there's a pretty high likelihood that he's going to score at least 1 touchdown, maybe 2.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. This is the second Super Bowl in a row where I've been more concerned about the running back than I have about the opposing quarterback. And I actually, not to go on a tangent here, but I do think I would be more scared of Brock Purdy than Jalen Hurts based on a lot of things.
Yeah, I turned off the game early against Washington a couple weeks ago. Once it got out of hand, I was like, I'm not watching the rest of this. And the Eagles just like they forced the fumbles, and as a team, they were just so overwhelming. But I do think Hurts played relatively well in that game. Now I know Washington's defense is not what you would say one of the best defenses in the NFL this year.
Without their best defensive tackle, by the way.
Yeah. And he got banged up against the Rams, and that was part of the reason for him not playing very well. He was not moving hardly at all. And then also it started blizzarding midway through the game. So I think probably the hate on Hurts has gone a little bit too far, but also I think it's debatable who I'm more afraid of. And I think if the answer is Purdy, I think that's really more of a nod to Kyle Shanahan, probably, than Brock Purdy versus Jalen Hurts, I think would be my final take on that.
I think the last thing, and I couldn't find this, but this is a good segue here. I was looking for Jalen Hurts sack props.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any. Just to put this.
So you can't find like, you can find it if you just look at team sack totals. Because one of mine is the Eagles against the Chiefs, and we can get to that in a little bit. But as you talk, I'll see if I can hunt down what that number is.
But against zone blitzes, which is a Spagnuolo special, Jalen Hurts is worst in the NFL of every quarterback in like every quantifiable metric. From EPA per play to sack percentage to turnover worthy play rate. And it's 37 out of 37. Like this is including quarterbacks who didn't even play a full season. And Warren Sharp's really been on this one. And that's where I'm really interested to see this game goes. And also why I perked my ears up with the Trent McDuffie MVP talk. Because the Eagles obviously saw what Kansas City did on the final play of the game against Buffalo. And Jalen Hurts is probably thinking, if I see McDuffie walking towards the line of scrimmage, I'm going to throw to that side of the field. And if he drops back in his zone, that seems like a really good probability that we're going to end up with that ball if we run a fake zone blitz or we just switch sides at the last minute like Spags has been known to do. So the prop that I was really interested in that you might be finding is I think Jalen Hurts takes 3 or 4 sacks this game at a minimum. And I feel pretty strongly that their passing game is going to have some hiccups in it based on what Spagnuolo does.
Okay. Oh, I thought I had. Oh, so why is it not under there? Team specials. Offensive yards, time of possession. Man, there are just so many.
The props in the Super Bowl are ridiculous.
So, and I can't even find because I know I found the Chiefs one because I have that in one of mine. Total game sacks over 4.5 is minus 150. Under 4.5 is plus 120.
See, I hate that because I'm taking the over.
Yeah, most sacks Chiefs are minus 105. Eagles plus 165. Let me just look at what I got the Eagles prop at on mine. Eagles. Yeah, Mahomes. I mean, so these are not great odds, but this is just one that I want to take. Mahomes, basically Eagles under 2.5 sacks, minus 162. I like Mahomes just doesn't take sacks. Like they might get him once, maybe twice, unless the O line is dead. He's just not going to get sacked more than that.
Was
probably.
this Eagles team even high in sacks this year? I don't even think they were. Maybe
Not,
I'm vastly underrating them.
Not particularly. I of course can't find the exact Eagles prop I'm looking for now, sadly. But yeah, that would be one to hunt down and see what that number is. But I mean, if the Eagles over 2.5 is juice, that means 3 is the implied total for the Eagle. I don't understand how that makes sense. But the Chiefs are favored to have more sacks. But that number for total sacks in the game is 4.5. I don't know. But
yeah,
I swear
the Eagles
to God,
are 14th in sacks. So they're not. I mean, they're literally middle of the pack.
Those are props to look through your millions of options and see what you can find. Okay, making sure I didn't skip over any of your other ones. I put this one in just for you, Dalton, because I like the multi-sport crossovers. There's one in DraftKings too that I have not. There's like a section that I haven't looked at. This one's from FanDuel, who will have more points on Super Bowl Sunday. Cade Cunningham or Patrick Mahomes. I will do.
Right, for Mahomes.
Yeah, sorry. More points, Cade Cunningham versus Mahomes completions. I will do you the solid here and go.
No, I'll
first.
go first because I actually looked into this.
Okay.
So I read that. I thought about it. I took Mahomes because I don't know who Cade Cunningham is. And
yes, you do. You know who Cade Cunningham is.
I do not. I believe he was drafted number 1 overall by the Detroit Pistons.
Yes, he played at Oklahoma State. He played at Oklahoma State.
Legitimately have not watched him play since I watched him play in college.
Well, that I believe, but you know who he is.
But based on going with ball knowledge, I have no basketball knowledge. Therefore, the only correct answer is Patrick Mahomes.
So they're both minus 110. The thing about this, so Cade's averaging 25 points per game this year. Mahomes, I don't know what his average completions per game is. I'm not doing that math for all 19 games or whatever they've played. 18 that he's played, I think. But in the playoffs, 18 and 16 have been Mahomes' numbers. You look back just at previous Super Bowls, 34 last year. That was obviously overtime, but 34.
Mahomes
21.
24.5.
24 and a half. That's his average.
Yes.
Yeah, so their averages are basically the same. 21 in the previous Eagles Super Bowl, and then 26 the previous 2 Super Bowls. Probably should have been like 31 against Tampa Bay if I'm remembering that game correctly. But he ended up at 26. Not to get too deep in the NBA weeds here, but Detroit plays Charlotte, who is quite bad on Sunday.
They're the Hornets.
Yep, they're the Hornets. Cade is averaging about 27 points a game since January 1st. I will say he's averaging 21.7 points per game against Charlotte, but I think that's just random. He's shooting 18% from 3 in those games. So that's random. Like that. Charlotte's a terrible defensive team, not taking anything from that. If you just look at the game logs, though, he is more likely to score 30 than Mahomes is to have more than 30 completions. So just on the odds of a Cade blow-up game, I'm taking Cade Cunningham's number here.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like Cade's playing a bad defense. Mahomes is playing a good defense.
Yeah, it'd be nice if Mahomes playing the Hornets in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they only start 5 players on defense. That would be really fun.
And one of them is LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, thank you for joining on my NBA stat discussion. They have 5 players. Eagles have 11. Eagles more players. That bad.
Okay. Will either team trail by 14 points and come back to win? You're not betting this if you're betting no, because that's minus 2,000. If you want to bet yes, plus 770. If you just want to try and get out ahead of the Chiefs falling behind, which they have fallen behind by double digits in every Super Bowl they've played, 3 of them they've won. However, they've never fallen behind by 14. It's always been 10 or 11.
I'm not betting this because I only think one team can overcome that deficit with the way they're built, which is the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's fair. That's fair.
Even at the odds. Also, I'm not betting this because I'm taking the no, but I'm not betting it. Mm-hmm. Also, for my liver, my heart, my wallet, my soul, I do not want to see at any point in this game from the Kansas City Chiefs a 14-point deficit.
Actually, I think for your wallet, that would be good because that's how I've made my money in every Super Bowl. Is just, okay, let's go live bet the Chiefs. They're down 10.
A couple of problems with that, Evan. I'm watching the game in Missouri.
Well, that's a you problem.
Problem number 2, and who knows if this is devil magic or not. The group of people I watch Chiefs games with, every Super Bowl we've watched together, which is all of them excluding the Bucs one, we did this. When the Chiefs started to lose, and we did this also when the Bills went wide right last year, we buy rally, double, captain, and Cokes. And last year, when we went into overtime, I watched somebody in my group buy 18 of them. So for my wallet, there would be a lot of those bought, and I would at some point be liable to buy a large portion of it.
The good news for you in that case is you wouldn't be able to live bet because you might accidentally toss an extra 0 on the end of your bet when you're typing it in if you're trying to make a bet.
Yes.
At that point. I agree with you. I'm not betting it. If I have to pick a side, I'm taking no. I just thought it was an interesting one to throw out there because, like, there's worse ways to spend your $5 than just to say, hey, $5 plus 770. Let's see if the Chiefs can come back and, boom, you're like at what, $40, $41 probably if that hits.
Yeah, it is a good bet if you're just trying to throw money down.
Last play of the game is a QB kneel. Yes, minus 162. No, plus 132. I'm trying to think. I believe the 49ers game, the first one, that was probably a QB kneel. The Bucs game probably was the other way because the Chiefs were losing by so much. The last two, one of them was Jalen Hurts' Hail Mary being about 35 yards short of the end zone. And then last year was literally a walk-off last play of the game in overtime. So I think it's been a 50-50 split with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl in that regard.
And I'm taking yes just because it's plus money. And I'm actually betting this one because
you mean no is plus money.
Sorry, no,
plus 132.
Yes. I'm saying no, the last play won't be a kneel. Yes, somebody's gonna do something on the last play.
Okay.
I don't think either team is poorly coached enough. For all of the problems with Nick Sirianni, he is good at game management and will likely, if they're down, have enough timeouts to force the Chiefs to punt if that's the situation, and probably get a Fangio defensive play drawn up to prevent a first down, and the Eagles will get the ball. And I think that would likely be the outcome. Or Patrick Mahomes walks down the field and Harrison Butker kicks a game-winning field goal. Those are the 2 possible outcomes here I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would say I'm on yes for this. I'll explain how this folds into another bet of mine in a few minutes. I'm kind of seeing this as a Buffalo Bills type of finish where the Chiefs have to keep getting first downs to win the game, and they win by 3 or whatever, and they're able to take a knee to end the game. But I mean that is obviously a major guess. So whatever. Yes, minus 162, because more often than not, game, like even if like let's say the Eagles or the Chiefs like miss a 55-yard field goal and there's 10 seconds left. Well, then the game ends on a kneel. There's just more avenues for a game, even if it's just one play to end on a kneel.
That's
I like this next one from you. Brotherly shove first downs over 2.5. I don't care if it's minus 144. I am taking the over 2.5 on that. And if you want to get it down closer to, even odds, just find something else you like. Do an alternate yards for somebody like a Mahomes or Saquon or whoever.
shoot an
And just
alternate rush yard prop for Jalen Hurts 10 yards. You get 2.5 of them right there.
yeah, I mean maybe yeah, if it's like 4 of them, that could be like 6 rushing yards right there.
Yeah, and this one I found weird because I mean the Bills tried their version of the brotherly shove 4 times against us.
The thing about that was everybody, commentators and Chiefs and fans, knew it was going over the left guard, and in order to do that, you have to back up and then go. Whereas like the Eagles one, it's like
They just go.
you're helpless. Like you are basically, if they don't fumble the snap, they're gonna pick it up.
Yeah, and this is a team, and this is the case for the Chiefs. You're going to go for it on a lot of fourth downs, and they're
The
going to
Eagles
work
are
to
like
get that 1 yard.
the Eagles are like minus 500 to pick up a 4th down conversion in this game.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I thought this was a low prop, only 2.5 times for it to be a first down. The only question I had, it's probably a no, but a touchdown doesn't count as a first down, right?
That's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Neither do I. I think the sports books are probably counting it as no because there's a version of this where there are 3 touchdowns and they're all brotherly shove. And that's not a crazy thing to say with this Eagles team.
So the next one, I saw different odds than these tweeted out by Barstool. I found these odds, just like Google them, found an article written by some gambling site because I don't think there's odds for Gatorade in Kansas for whatever reason. I feel like I run into this every year.
We're a Power State.
Yeah, that's right. What color Gatorade? Purple plus 100. Again, like maybe I'll just read the order because the order is the same. The odds may be different. And if you're in a state, you can bet it. Like go look at what Barstool tweeted out. Purple, yellow/green. I think lime also falls into that as well. Blue, a pretty distant third. Orange, and then jumping even further back, you have red or pink because nobody wants a red stain. And then clear/water is in last place, which is interesting. I think that's different than years past. The Chiefs have been purple each of the last 2 times they've won the Super Bowl. The Eagles, I believe, for their NFC championship this year and when they made the Super Bowl last time, have been the yellow/lime green. The Chiefs were orange the first time they won the Super Bowl, though. I mean, this is a fun one. If we could bet it, just take a guess on. So what's your guess here?
So for 3 Super Bowls, I have done a lot of research.
Me too.
and I've been wrong every time for anybody listening.
Yeah, I mean it's a very hard one.
So I just picked blue. And if you ask me why I picked blue, because I like the color blue. And that's it. That's what we're doing here. If blue's plus 600, that's good enough money for me.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way for me to predict this one.
If you're betting it, you're not betting purple at plus 100. Or even like I think Barstool's was like closer to plus 200. But still, that's just you're not getting good enough value for all the different options. I'm with you. I'm taking orange just because we've seen the Chiefs do it before. So maybe they go back to it. What I want to know, I sent you guys the video earlier today of that one idiot going around asking Mahomes and Kelsey like about the refs. Like, have you sent the refs Christmas cards, blah, blah, blah. You've seen people asking, like, these are not NFL reporters. These are just random people who
how they got in is insane.
Yeah, I know. But like people ask, like, are you going to propose to Taylor Swift? Like, can we ask the questions that matter? Ask these guys their favorite Gatorade. Like, please, like,
we need to know.
Like, give us something for this. Come on.
Yeah. So I really don't know on this one. It's going to be clear on some weird shit, I'm sure.
I have to look, because in previous years, you're right. I have done the work where I've gone and looked at like every single one, and maybe clear just hasn't happened for a while. But you've got to think there's a water tub somewhere, and like they don't know what they're grabbing. They're just like going and grabbing something.
You
So
have to think somebody somewhere knows the equipment manager
yeah.
and just says, "Hey, Paul, blues plus 600. Make it blue for both teams. Make it blue for the Chiefs. That's a 50-50 chance already. Probably a 70-30 if you're really betting the Super Bowl correctly. That there's blue Gatorade, and I'm a rich man."
I wonder what happens if this is like if it's like they pour it and it's like confetti or something, like something ridiculous, if it gets voided. If
It's
that
going to be
ever
like
even
zebra
happens.
colored. The ref conspiracy is going to go on forever.
Okay, on to the props that I brought. First one, and as I mentioned, Mahomes' only incompletion in the second half of the last Eagles Super Bowl was a pass out of the back of the end zone. If you remember, that was a design trick play to an offensive lineman in the end zone. So we're taking an offensive lineman to score a touchdown at plus 1,800. Like, these
Which
are the
one?
type. It doesn't matter. It's any of them. Plus
But who do
18.
you think it will be?
Well, Wande Morris did score a touchdown in week 3. Is he active in this game? I don't know. You can literally bet Lane Johnson plus 3,500 to score a touchdown. So he's
I don't even
apparently
like those odds.
he's another potential candidate. But the Chiefs literally had a play drawn up for an O lineman touchdown. I think it may have been Allegretti out on the route. He's obviously not with the Chiefs anymore. The Eagles, I don't know if they've had any O-line touchdowns this year. The Chiefs also, in addition to an O-line touchdown, if you remember, on a crucial play, it may have been a fourth down in Buffalo in the regular season, threw to an offensive lineman on like a little shallow drag route, and he caught it and like took a pretty decent hit when he caught it. So I just gotta think there's a chance. And like plus 1,800, this is just one. Have a little fun with.
I mean, you certainly do that one. I have one for you that I didn't put on the sheet and that I can't find anywhere, but I think it probably exists. And if it doesn't, a sports book should be listening.
Yeah.
What are your odds on Jason Kelsey's team attire?
Oh, on this, he's definitely. Well, I have not listened to New Heights this week. He said something about maybe wearing like Cincinnati, like a Cincinnati, like Bearcats. I don't know. I feel like he might just be completely neutral. But you're right. That should definitely be a prop.
Yeah. For Kelsey, Chiefs gear, Eagles gear. I wonder what that would be set at. It has to be minus money for Eagles, I would assume.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
He
they'll
he
be
was
in a Chiefs suite with his mom and Taylor Swift.
and he was very non-committal. Like, I'm rooting for Travis Kelsey, but I'm also like I'm gonna rooting for the like. So I don't know, that one pretty 50-50. My next one, this is back to real football here a little bit, as opposed to O linemen scoring touchdowns. Mahomes and Jalen Hurts to combine for 6 total touchdowns in this game, so passing and rushing, plus 320. Mahomes had 3 touchdowns last week, 2 rushing, 1 passing. He's only had 2 passing touchdowns in the playoffs. It's a little scary. Saquon scoring touchdowns, also a little scary. But I just like in games where they offer these specials, I kind of like double dipping, like taking 2 guys to do one thing, because if you get one big game from one of them, then you can survive a 1 or 2 touchdown game potentially from another one. So obviously, like, great chance we get 1 or 2 brotherly shove touchdowns in this game. This is one at plus 320 that I like taking.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good one, especially with the brotherly shove occurring. And I think that gives Jalen Hurts a little extra EV on getting the rushing touchdowns for it. And who knows what this Chiefs offense is going to look like. As somebody who's watched every Chiefs game probably more than once on this season alone, I couldn't tell you what kind of weird stuff Andy Reid and company are going to come up running. I also did take Nico Remigio anytime touchdown scorer. I think it's like plus 4,000. Just because,
I have a much more realistic Nico Remigio prop for you in a minute.
oh, fun. But I could see him ending up out there on some red zone play where he's actually the design target and the Eagles don't put Desheen or Quinyon Mitchell on him.
So I'll skip to Nico since I just brought him up. And this is obviously only a 50-50 shot that he's the one on the field for this. Any opening kick to be a touchback or a fair catch. I didn't write down what the touchback or fair catch odds were because I'm taking no at plus 168 because if that kick goes to Nico to start the game, unless it's 9 yards deep, that dude is probably returning it, is what I've learned in these last couple of weeks.
But Evan, the Chiefs elevated Sky Moore.
It's just a nice reward for Sky Moore for good behavior.
What does it mean?
He didn't play at all. He got elevated last year too, and he got the good citizen award of suiting up in the Super Bowl over Kadarius Toney last year.
It's a good citizen award. BRB looking at Sky Moore anytime touchdown scorer props.
doubt he's even listed. The other one in the same vein is O-line. Any non-quarterback to record a passing touchdown, you know that I like to just sprinkle on this one every year. Plus 1,700. Kelsey and Pacheco, both college quarterbacks. I mean, if you're going to get a Travis Kelce Super Bowl MVP, a great way to get it done would be a trick play where Kelsey gets a little touchdown pass over the top somehow. I'm trying to think. I know he's done it for the Giants, and I actually think he threw an interception for the Giants doing so. Has Saquon thrown a pass this year? I have to.
No, he threw one. I think it was week 8 or 9.
Because I know there was an instance for the Giants in a big, maybe a playoff game where Saquon ended up throwing like the biggest interception of the game because they ran a pass for Saquon. But I could, like, if the Eagles are looking for a red zone wrinkle, a Saquon like outside run into a pass is another one that I could easily see.
Yeah, especially with him throwing as well as Jalen Hurts does sometimes. So DraftKings doesn't even have Sky Moore off the injured reserve. And they have a player named E.J. Jenkins. But Sky Moore is not listed as a possible player to bet any props on for the Super Bowl for anybody interested. Kerry Blossom game is on this list. Peyton Hendershot.
He's out there. He was celebrating at least 1 or 2 touchdowns in the red zone.
Did you know Paris Campbell was an Eagle?
No, I did not, actually.
He apparently is because he's on the list. You can give him a plus 6,000 to score a touchdown, plus 15,000 anytime.
I don't think Sky Moore's seeing the field.
DraftKings apparently thinks so. They won't even take my money on this one.
But yeah, any non-quarterback, that's one I always like to make. Jimmy Butler just traded to the Warriors for anybody who cares.
Okay, this is twice we brought up NFL talk on this podcast.
NBA, actually. NBA talk, some might say. You said NFL talk.
Oh, my bad.
We already talked about Barkley 2 touchdowns. Talked about Saquon and Kareem Hunt. I don't know about you, but I'm a little I don't even know what Kelsey's actual yardage prop is. I'm just a little nervous betting Kelsey's yardage prop because you just kind of don't know from game to game what that's going to look like, it seems, this year. But what I do like a little bit more, because I do still think he'll have a solid game regardless, is Kelsey 25+ receiving yards in either half. I just like the value plus 220. He's had 307 receiving yards in the last 3 Super Bowls. So I feel like the bets that are either in each half or each quarter, I always feel really good about, and they're always like crazy odds, and they don't seem to work as often as I think they should. But I do think that this is one 25+. If I'm betting any Kelsey prop, it's probably this one.
You can actually bet a head-to-head with him and A.J. Brown, and he's plus 125 to have more receiving yards. And the spread on that is plus 9.5.
Trent McDuffie, Super Bowl MVP.
The people are saying.
So that's the only Kelsey one I'm probably taking. I would maybe look at that Kelsey versus A.J. Brown. The 2 Mahomes props that I said are going to tie into the kneel down potential for me. I think my favorite prop of any of these to bet, if I had to say, is Mahomes over 5.5 carries at minus 102. You look back, I think he's done it. I don't think he did against the Texans. That was partially because he was under pressure the whole game, but he did it last week. The last three, so his rushing attempts in every conference title or Super Bowl since we traded Tyreek Hill, 3, which that was 8 days after a high ankle sprain. 6, 6, and 9 are the other numbers. On that, you look back at the Super Bowl in 2019, he was at 9. I believe against Tampa, he was at 5, and that was partially because he was running for his life so much he couldn't actually get past the line of scrimmage in those instances. But the thing with Mahomes is that in big games, it's just always smart to look at his rushing props. I have over 28.5 down on here too. But the reason why I like the attempts a little bit more, number one, minus 102 compared to minus 110 for the yards. You like that. And then you do get the benefit of those kneel downs count as rushing attempts, and they also count as negative yards. If you do happen to be at 30 and you get 3 kneel downs to end the game, you're very mad. So I love over 4.5 at minus 102. Over 5.5, excuse me. Over 5.5, minus 102 for Mahomes.
I like that. I mean, I think he is going to run the ball. We see him in the playoffs every year run the ball more than he does during the regular season. I like him as well at 40-plus rushing yards at plus 155.
Yep.
Which I feel pretty strongly about. I did tinker with the idea. 70 yards is plus 690.
That feels like a lot.
It does.
And what I will say, to play a little bit devil's advocate, my only worry is the Eagles do play a lot of zone, so maybe that cuts down a little bit on the rush attempts. But it's just like in these big games, the plays that have stood out the most over the last 4 or 5 years have been Patrick Mahomes runs. And since Tyreek Hill has been gone, especially, he's had to take matters in his own hands a little bit more in that regard. So I'm not taking the 70 yards. I'm definitely interested in the 40 at the whatever you said, plus 190 or whatever those odds were.
Plus 190. 70 could just be a fun little bet.
Yeah.
I mean, if say it all day, Daquan breaks 160-yarder. Why can't Mahomes do that?
Well, I mean, last time they played the Eagles, I'd have to go look at what his actual final total was. He did break like a 35-yard run that ended up being the biggest play of that game. And then, I mean, last year, until the game-winning touchdown, the biggest play of that game was a 20-some-yard run right up the middle in overtime. I already talked about Mahomes under 2.5 sacks, or what you're really looking for is Eagles, what their sack line is. And if you can find the Chiefs, take a look at that as well. Kareem Hunt, anytime touchdown, plus 135. He scored in 4 consecutive games. If they get inside the 5, if it's not a pass, it's going to be most likely Kareem Hunt. Now, there may be a trick play where it's a Mahomes run or like a jet sweep or something. Like Kareem Hunt is a very good short yardage back, and I just feel like at plus 135, it's just kind of a bet that I can't turn down.
Mahomes had 44 yards last Super Bowl against the Eagles.
Man, so like 30 of those were on one play.
Yeah.
He also was playing on a high ankle sprain.
He had 6 carries for 44 yards.
Man, playing on a high ankle sprain, and he even tweaked it right before halftime of that game. And that's the other thing. He's healthy in this game, where he has in past Super Bowls dealt with turf toe and high ankle sprain and still flirted with or gone over both of these numbers. 2 more really quick ones. I'll give my real shot in the dark one first, and then give a serious one to close out here. I think I gave this bet last year. I don't remember even who the player was. I don't remember if I bet won or lost. I remember I either won or came very close to winning and was very excited. But there's a next-gen category on DraftKings again this year. I mean, you said probably not going to hit Hollywood Brown deep pass. But just what if they do, Dalton? And you can get Hollywood Brown, who is probably the second fastest player in this game. Do we agree? It's Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown are the two fastest players in this game.
I don't know about Saquon.
I think if you're just going on 40 time, I think Hollywood, like Saquon's the odds on favorite. He's like plus 250 or plus 275, something like that. Hollywood is plus 1260. So I'm just saying, like, if you just get one play where he has room to run, he is definitely a candidate to hit this. He's behind guys like I think like Juju is ahead of like guys who are way slower than him, but just more have been getting the ball more are ahead of him. So I'm just taking the fast guy who is far down, who has had some nice moments for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. How low is Worthy? Is he number 2?
I think it's AJ Brown 2 and Worthy 3. He's definitely in the top 3 though, and I think he's the highest Chiefs guy.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't mind having Hollywood Brown. Chiefs in the North wrote a little write up about how this could be a Hollywood blow up game as well. So definitely don't hate it.
Hadn't seen that. Interesting.
What about Ionis Smith?
Don't think so. You know, I can't ever find anything when I need it. Like, I know there's literally a next gen category. It's just buried somewhere within other stuff, I think. So I'm not gonna be able to pull up the whole list. But I know
it's funny because I did see like Saquon Barkley said at 19.5 miles per hour, you can bet the over or under. And I thought it was so weird that they're letting us bet on how fast a player runs, but none of that information is actually public.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm not betting on the numbers, but I am betting on just who is the fastest. Okay.
Exactly.
Last one, serious one here. If the Mahomes rushing prop is my favorite, this one is right there with the Kareem Hunt anytime touchdown is probably my second favorite and one that I'm betting. Both teams to convert 1 4th down minus 124. The Eagles, like I said, are like it's like minus or like plus 500 or minus 500, like minus 590. I think the Chiefs are minus 190. If you're gonna bet the Chiefs, I guarantee you the Eagles are picking up 1 4th and 1 at some point in this game. So you just take it, get it to minus 124. The Chiefs are notoriously more aggressive in the playoffs, as everybody is, but the Chiefs, especially so, very conservative in the regular season, will go for it in the playoffs. They have converted a 4th down in each of their first 2 playoff games.
Yeah, I love that one. That's actually a really good one. I think both teams are going to go for it pretty frequently on 4th down.
Yeah. All right, Dalton, anything else to add before we hop out of here before the Super Bowl?
We'll final score predictions.
Oh, final score. I feel like one year we did like a try and get the exact final score. Like I even placed like $1 bet on it. You can place a bet where you can guess the exact same final score as last time, 38-35. I think that'd be a bad bet. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game because both teams like to possess the ball. Unless Saquon Barkley is breaking off a long run, the Eagles do typically win the time of possession. The Chiefs still are pretty much a grinded out type of team. I'm going to say it's something like Chiefs. It's going to be something dumb. Like we're going to get, if you could bet a doink at like plus 500. So that's another thing to consider. I mean, I'm going to say like Chiefs 26, Eagles 21, something like that.
Go Chiefs 34.
Wow, 34.
Eagles 21.
Wow, blowout.
I'm going with a blow. Chiefs haven't had a blowout Super Bowl yet.
They have. They just were on the wrong end of it.
Chiefs haven't won a blowout Super Bowl yet. And personally, I really need that. I need like a relaxing Super Bowl watch experience.
Man, people probably just hate your guts that you just said that. Like, wow, must be tough getting to the Super Bowl every year, playing in these close games. Like, can't imagine what that's like.
It's so hard. I'm sure 10 years from now, a doctor's going to be like, there's something wrong with you from like 2020 to 2025. And I'll be like, yeah, this is the Chiefs Super Bowl runs.
Don't you have a Whoop? I mean, you just like share your Whoop data with your doctor, and you could probably find some spikes in January, February.
I'll tell you what, I will share my Whoop data on Twitter during the Super Bowl so we can see how high my beats per minute gets. I know last year I set the record in recovery the day after the Super Bowl with a 1% recovery rate. And my
For those who
whoop
don't
was
know, it's supposed to 1% is bad.
1% is as low as you can go, unless 0% I think is dead. Um, and my whoop was giving me a bunch of alerts that it thought I had. It was like, do you have COVID? Do you have the flu? Have you been to a doctor recently? And I was like, no, I am just incredibly hungover at the moment and hoping to recreate that experience and all of its magic this Sunday.
Okay. I can't. We have not decided what the schedule is going forward. I mean, to be clear, if the Chiefs lose, we're not going to pod next week. Just going to get that out there. Not that we're going to recap Super Bowl anyway, but I just won't want to talk about football. But there is a chance that even if they win, we decide let's take a little time, study up on some incoming draft prospects, and then talk, because that is what we're going to be getting to next. And obviously, we have free agency that we can talk about too as well. But feeling a little bit early for that, but we'll see. At either rate, we'll talk to you guys at some point in the next couple of weeks, I'd imagine. Appreciate everybody, as always, for listening all season long. Go Chiefs. And you can find us on Spotify, Apple, all of that. Leave us a 5-star review. As I said, we'll talk to you again sometime soon.